Monday. We're trying it on my phone because my iPad is dead-ish. Let's see. So we're gonna get to page 178 by Monday. Sorry, how embarrassing. If you want to read past that, you're more than welcome to, because I will not be reading more with you probably after today. So if you get to page 178 and you want to just finish the book, give yourself less homework next week. If you would much rather hold on to it and read it during iStuff next week, that's also fine with me. But your goal is we're going to have the whole book finished by end of next week, by like next Thursday, Friday. So I think there's like page 220, so that usually like another 40, 50 pages to read over the course of next week. Knock it out if you can, go you. iStuff practice test tomorrow. It will not take the whole class period. You'll have more time to read tomorrow too. Honor Society kids, Kings Island trip, see me if you want more information about it. It's going to be Wednesday, May 30th, the day before the band fire orchestra one. It's $65, and then also bring in the snack donations because we're trying to help kids, and apparently kids are important or something. Once again, Larry homework number 2, which is not due till next week. This one also goes in the notebook. You're going to be creating a 10-song playlist. You're going to pick any character that you want and come up with 10 songs you think would be on their playlist that connected them in some way. Give me an explanation for each song. They don't have to be songs you know. You're welcome to Google them and stuff like that, although you might want to listen to them on the off chance that you put a random song down and then it turns out it's like baby stomping or something like that, and you're like, I had no idea. I want to listen to a song called Stomping because I think they would use it. And we're like, that's the song about baby stomping? And you're like, what? No! So you might want to at least look into the song before you write it down, or just list it and let it be a surprise. Who knows who's going to choose the baby stomping song? It was a really big hit in the 60s. And I think that covers most of that. It came after the 1950s and before the 1970s.
How nobody was laughing.
Now you're laughing.
You're all just staring at me in shock. I'm fine with that too. Because now you're all going to go home and Google baby stomping.
Yeah.
You're like, that was a song.
Instead of doing my homework.
Yeah.
Like always.
Homework's overrated. Page 120. As soon as we finished off with them, well, we introduced the thing they're going to use to celebrate.
Disco, yeah.
You be strong. Don't let them judge.
It's not judging as much else.
That's what judging. It's not judging. I'm just like determining my opinion of what they're doing. And that's judging. We can ask Judy. Yeah, that'd be judging. Good job, Judy.
They be judging.
Let's see. We talked about Larry Fest. I think that's one big one. Got into it. The freaking out. The helping. There. Your opinions. All right. So then we stopped on page 120, right? Yes. Where they talk about the Larry Fest. He's getting ready to go to. He's all excited. I think he was just showing up. Just showing up at Larry Fest, page 120. People crowded around the entrance gate, but no one seemed impatient or annoyed. Several participants had crossed off the logos on their shirts and jackets or opted instead for simple handmade t-shirts with "I am not your billboard" stenciled on them. A 15-year-old girl who had to stop talking for a moment because they forgot to plug in the microphone. That's what you laugh at?
Yeah, that was funnier than the actual joke.
I was like, wait, that's not in the book. Am I in the wrong page?
Awkward.
I was like, I see anything at the bottom. That means, is there something there?
I was like,
Those of you at home, I apologize if you can just now hear me. Awkwardness. And we'll keep going. All right. A 15-year-old girl asked me if I knew which way to the main stage. Beth had already memorized the map on the drive up and gave her directions. "This is unbelievable," Beth said for the millionth time. "Larry must be overwhelmed." I told her that was a pretty safe bet. Beth's sister and her friends set up camp near the arts and crafts booths. Beth and I carried our tents and sleeping bags down to the body painting area. For the first hour, I barely spoke, just stumbled around snapping pictures. My mind reeled from the immensity of the event. Music, colors, food, everything seemed surreal, a technicolor explosion. Instead of taking credit for Larry Fest, patting myself on the back for being the guy who made it all happen, I realized a force much larger than myself at work. The universe was now behind the wheel, and I was all too happy to hand over the driving. Every few moments, something new caught my eye. Angel wings, tie-dyed togas, horns, fishnets, soccer uniforms, American flags, Dr. Seuss hats, camouflage, Larry tattoos. The food vendors sold the enchiladas, salads, and noodles at cost. Poland Spring gave away thousands of bottles of water. Now, side note, just the opposite of Woodstock 99, which sold them for $10 a pop, or whatever. Local bands shared the stage with international stars. The lines at the charity and volunteer back home booths rivaled those for the porta-johns. People signed petitions, made pledges, sat around campfires, exchanged ideas. Never in my wildest, most insane dreams could I have come up with something so interesting, so spontaneous, so positive. Larry had taken on a life of his own. Beth and I danced for most of the afternoon. When you two took the stage to close the show Saturday night, the crowd exploded. Halfway through the set, Bono quieted the masses. There's been a lot of talk about finding out who this Larry really is. Bono's Irish. I'm doing my Irish accent. Pretty sure I nailed it. Irish, British, Australian, they're all kind of the same accent. What's important? Because he was Scottish, which is like Irish to the right.
You did that one better though.
The Irish one
was better.
Once again, we're feeling a little judgy all of a sudden.
That's exactly what's happening.
I'll tell you, friends. I don't want to know. The audience cheered. Larry, this one's for you. Yeah, you listen to Bono's like exact same. You're like,
Spot on.
What?
I have a question. Do the one you did in Harvey the Rabbit? That was like Irish.
The opening chorus, what the fans now called Larry's theme, filled the night sky. To be honest, I would have preferred to hear Bad, my favorite U2 song, one my mother swore was the greatest rock song ever recorded. But even if Bono had sung I'm a Little Teapot, I would have screamed just as loudly. The crowd shouted and sang along. It was, bar none, the greatest moment of my 17-year-old life. In the span of an 8-minute song, years of teenage doubts about ever being able to make a difference evaporated. I basked in being a tiny catalyst in the scheme of the universal plan. By the time Beth and I got back to our tents, we collapsed into sleep. The next day, we sat in on a presentation by the Salt Lake City Larry organization discussing the way they banned billboards and superstores in their town. The Boulder, Colorado group coached others on how to fight the gun companies in their state. Billy North had a tent where he discussed his Larry word placement theory. I had to listen. It was too perfect. And I've wondered, by the way, if he let the fact of what Larry was doing with the whole trying to analyze things influence what he was doing. Because I think if it was me, I would obviously start planting things just to try and mess with people, because I have issues. But I think he's a stronger person than me. Maybe. Beth and I joined a group doing yoga in a cathedral of pines. On our way back to camp, we visited several other booths, spending time with two guys from Oakland who were making a video collage about the festival. I made sure to stay away from the camera. Beth wandered ahead for a few minutes, then returned with her hands behind her back. Ta-da! She held out a large purple wizard's hat with gold stars and moons. She placed it on my head. I now pronounce you Josh Swinson, wizard extraordinaire. While part of me figured out which possession I'd have to jettison back home, most of me laughed at the absurdity of her thoughtful gift. Good old Merlin himself couldn't have foreseen a day like this. Why was he thinking about what he had to jettison?
Because he only owns
So every time he gets a gift, he has to get rid of one. So he's already figuring out he's definitely keeping this one. Do you like it? Beth asked. I hugged her close and told her it was fabulous. We explored the rest of the booths on our way back to the tents. Wedged at the end of the last row was a cafeteria table with a banner that stopped me in my tracks. Sign a petition for Larry to fess up. I casually approached the table. A clipboard held a large stack of lined paper, most without signatures. A sign on the table explained the petition. I like what Larry has to say, but does it bother anyone else that she is afraid to sign his, her name to his, her sermons? These people who can't just enjoy things have to find something to complain about, Beth complained.
That's what.
Sorry, mine's written differently. Sign this petition if you also think we deserve to know who the person is who invades our homes and minds every day. Sign if you believe that the philosophy of Larry shouldn't be about keeping secrets. I didn't need to see who sponsored the petition, but the answer stared back from the page anyway. Email me if you want to talk more about it. Beta Gold. Most of the lines of the petition were filled with things like, "Get a life, Beta Gold," or "Who cares, it's working." A few dozen people had signed the petition in support of Beta Gold. I wonder if Larry's seen this, Beth asked. I wonder what he thinks about it. He probably hopes Beta Gold will just go away. Well, that makes two of us. She entwined her hand in mine. I didn't want to put words to it, afraid to break the spell. But in the dreamlike world of Larry Fest, Beth and I had suddenly become a couple. Each time my mind turned toward what would happen when we got back home, I pictured a giant red stop sign. I didn't want to ruin the present worrying about the future. Let's go back to camp, she said. Hiccup, sorry. Thank you. Better. Let's go back to camp, she said. My love for Beth hadn't wavered since 6th grade. Now, here we were lying in our sleeping bags, gazing at the stars, my arm around her in a casual, for her, yet meaningful, for me, way. The success of the festival had sprung a geyser of giddiness inside me. So, you think Larry's here? I played with one of her braids while I spoke. Oh, he's definitely here, and I bet he's loving this. Oh, he is, I said, guaranteed. She propped herself up on her elbow. What do you think he's like as a person? Some brainwave or just a regular guy? Just another guy in a wizard hat, I'm sure. She took a long look at me, then punched me in the arm. I pulled her closer to me to use my Larryness as a way of having my way with Beth. Would be so not Larry. Of course, that didn't mean a huge part of me didn't want to do just that. If I were going to tell Beth about my secret identity, this would be the perfect time. I looked at her, cuddled in her sleeping bag, and weighed the choices in my mind. Yes, no. Yes, no. Yes, no. Yet our relationship could reach another level. I'd reach another level in the honesty department, and just like that, I decided to tell her. Beth, wait a minute, look! 3 girls from Chicago approached us, handing out lyrics to a song they'd written for everyone to sing the next morning. After they left, Beth turned to me. Yes? But the moment had passed. She gave me a squeeze, then lay back to watch the fireworks. She said goodnight an hour later with a chaste kiss on my cheek. I watched her sleep through the canopy netting. Did I just blow it? Should I have been more assertive? Told her how I felt? I was a guy who diagrammed Rubik's Cubes for fun, but couldn't dig deep down to that emotional place inside and tell my best friend how I felt about her. I always could do that with Mom, but a person shouldn't be emotionally honest with only one person his whole life, should he? Shouldn't the courtesy extend to everyone? My intentions were good. My feelings were real. I just couldn't put 2 and 2 together. Why don't they make those colorful magnetic numbers for the heart? That's where I really needed the help. Or maybe I was just practicing restraint. Maybe making friendly time to Beth under a sky of fireworks, of all things, would have been gaudy and anticlimactic. No pun intended. Maybe I'd done the right thing after all. I barely slept all night. Some wizard I was, more like Mickey Mouse trying to hold back the flood of buckets. What a loser.
I don't want to Mickey Mouse. What's wrong with you?
We were about to depart.
I know. That's why I'm stopping there. This is where you guys will start reading on your own. By the way, if you finish the book,